Cause you feel my mind, oh you feel my mind. We could build a dream, start up something new, and the world is on your shoulders and you feel like falling over. Just let me in your head so I can be there for you, there for you. The night is young, won't you sing for me, won't you sing for me, you will fall asleep.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to VC Masters on the Pod TV network. I'm Nick Pellavito. I'll be your moderator. And today we have a very special show. A very special show. We're going to bring in one of the famous people in the United States who wrote a very famous book called The Millionaire Next Door. And if you haven't read it, it's something that you got to put on your shelf and something you're definitely going to have to read. But to give you an idea how great this book is, and he has a new book coming out too, that it didn't sell 400 copies. No. It didn't sell 4,000 copies. No. It didn't sell 400,000 copies. It sold over 4 million copies. And I remember picking up his predecessor book back in 1984, Marketing the Affluent. What a great book. But I have a special person who's going to be doing his introduction. He's the son of one of the Osmond brothers, which are a very famous musical group, Nathan Osmond. So I'm going to bring him in to do Dr. Danko's introduction.
Hi, I'm Nathan Osmond, singer, songwriter, motivational speaker, and even mortgage loan officer. I've known Dr. Bill Danko for over 20 years, and we've shared the stage at many great financial conferences the world over. Just recently, Dr. Bill Danko did a great Zoom call for my sales associates and shared some great principles from his New York Times longest best-selling list, The Millionaire Next Door, but also what it means to be richer than a millionaire. This is his new book, and I highly recommend it. The entire team at the Elite Team was very appreciative of Dr. Bill Danko's time and his insights, as he's a speaker that speaks with conviction from the heart. In fact, we ordered over 100 different copies of this book to give to our clients and our associates because we truly believe that by studying this book, it can really help you to get through these turbulent times. This book is solid with research and survey research and empirical evidence that helps you to understand that yes, money is important, but money plus happiness is even better. I highly recommend that you go get a copy of this book today. You won't regret it.
Well, thank you, Nathan. And now, I remember he was one of the sons of the Osmond brothers, which in the United States was a very famous musical group, but you can Google it and look it up. But with that, we're going to bring in the host of the show. He is a professor at Duke University and has done well over 100 startups. We're going to bring in Dr. Salman Azhar. Dr. Salman, you're going to be taking the show away. So with that, we're going to bring in also the special guest of today's show, the author of The Millionaire Next Door, Bill Danko. So both you guys are going to be in the house today, and take it away.
Bill, welcome. It is such an honor and pleasure to have you here. I want to start with your first book, and tell us how you came up with that idea and why you chose to write that book.
Yeah, right. You're referring, of course, to the Millionaire Next Door. That was very kind in that introduction. It has sold more than 4 million copies. And it all started as a research project. You know, when I was an undergraduate student, I thought I was going to go pre-med. And I did take all the courses. Unfortunately, I got B's and C's in physics and bio, organic chemistry. And I figured, I don't think it's really going to work out too well getting into a medical school. So let me do the next best thing, go to a school of business. One of the most fascinating courses I ever took was consumer behavior and marketing. And it was taught by a young, untenured assistant professor, Thomas J. Stanley. And I got an A in his course, and we turned out to be pretty good friends. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. But nevertheless, the research and the attitude and the discipline about research lives on. But that was going back to 1973, and he invited me to take part in his very first study of the affluent market through survey research. And so from 1973 till 1993, we did a number of studies together, working for financial research houses, some academic research as well. But we compiled a tremendous amount of empirical data. But in 1993, we got the phone call. He had moved on to another school. I, by then, was a professor at SUNY Albany School of Business. And he asked me, do you still have the old data sets? And I said, well, I do. He says, well, let's reanalyze them. I said, oh, great. With all sorts of disparate data sets. But we looked at it from a meta perspective, looking at all the data that we had. And we came up with some various hypotheses about wealth in America. And what turned out to be The Millionaire Next Door, which was developed over the next 3 years, it came out in 1996. And the running title was, and it was so apropos, called Big Hat, No Cattle. It's about people who have the appearance of wealth, but have no substance. And there's a lot of those people in our society, unfortunately. But nevertheless, the idea of The Millionaire Next Door came about really serendipity. It was, one professor talking to an undergraduate student, namely moi, and said, let's do some research. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions ever, better than, struggling, looking at sick patients all day, I suppose, which would have been the outcome had I gone to medical school, if I was capable of getting into medical school. So serendipity cannot be ignored. That's really true. And it also, another key element of this was, it wasn't like we had a huge research staff. It was Tom Stanley and Bill Danko struggling in the vineyards, trying to develop something that just might be worthwhile. And of course, the marketplace said it was worthwhile, and 4 million copies later, and a speaking circuit, and all sorts of activities. That's how it all came about.
Wonderful. So in your next book, Richer Than a Millionaire, you describe true prosperity. Tell us what that is.
Yeah. Again, looking at this over the past 40 years, this book came out in 2017. I met a lot of miserable, wealthy people. There are a number of people who said, I have my million, my 5 million, my 10 million. I'm addicted to this. I need more, more, more. And I said, boy, that's kind of pathological. There's just something wrong with that. I mean, there's something wrong with being successful, but when you're addicted to it, well, it's a sickness. Say, when you can never have enough. Well, look, based on my own personal experiences, you can have enough, one. But two, look, when we would ask people, okay, what is your current net worth? And say they had several $1 million, but then you would ask them the question, well, what would you need to really be wealthy in terms of net worth? They usually had a multiple that was going towards 2 or 3 or 5 times what they currently have. But when you put this in perspective, right now about 10% of the US population has a net worth of $1 million or more. And if you look at investable assets of $1 million or more, it's mostly like about 5% of the population, or 1 out of 20 households, have this level of prosperity. So when people tell me they need $10 million to feel wealthy, I mean, we're talking about being on the edge of the 1%ers here. Okay. So being addicted to wealth is, well, again, in my view, pathological, quite frankly. There are limits. And so this is what really inspired Richer Than a Millionaire, plus the fact that when Millionaire Next Door came out in 2016, or yeah, 2000, when did it come out? 1996, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1996. Yeah, I had a lot of things going on in my personal life as well. I had a quadriplegic brother that I was the primary caregiver for. And when I would deal with somebody who couldn't even scratch his nose, and needed all of his personal care attended to, and I was the weekend aide because it's so hard, and I kept him out of a nursing home. That's another key point here. I was fortunate enough to have a royalty stream. I could buy him a house and do this. But my point is, when you're looking at somebody from the same genetic stock who has very limited abilities, and here I am making money on the speaking circuit, and then thinking about a 1758 essay from Benjamin Franklin called The Way to Wealth, saying that you're not really wealthy until you give it away. And he says you must be charitable to those in need. Now, I'm not suggesting I'm any kind of a martyr, but I did something that was necessary for my brother. But when I started interviewing people and asking them, what is the purpose of the money that they have acquired? Some of those who were very satisfied in life, and they scored high on this scale called Subjective Well-Being, SWB, by Professor Ed Diener, who's also no longer with us, but he put this scale into the public domain. And that particular scale on life satisfaction, subjective well-being, became a primary element in developing Richer Than a Millionaire, where we could ask about things like, how much time do you give to charity? How much money do you give to charity? Do you practice the golden rule of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you? So when we looked at this and we found that, okay, everybody in our survey was wealthy in a material sense, but those who are really, really wealthy, richer than a millionaire, are those who are charitable as well, giving it away. And so that was really the inspiration, looking at, those who have nothing, like my brother in this sense, no material wealth, but looking at just his attitude about wanting to be a giver himself. And he did what he could to help others, that's for sure. But my point is, richer than a millionaire means we have much more than money that creates our wealth. You become a total person as opposed to just one that is so with a limited focus on making more.
Wonderful. So I'm thinking Robert Palmer's song Addicted to Love should be rebranded as Addicted to Wealth.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody is addicted to love anymore.
I think you might be right there. I am fortunate to have, a number of, friends who call on me and we're able to talk about a lot of different topics. Certainly, I was at the university for 31 years as a professor of marketing. And, I'm since, emeritus professor, but, I'm still, active and get to meet and talk to people like you, Salman. And it's an honor. It really is. This is, I am always delighted to be able to share what I know with others. Okay.
Well,
the other day, the other day, one of my good friends, who happens to be a practicing psychiatrist. I don't see him professionally. Maybe I should. But he called me up just to chit chat. He was between patients and he was thinking about me. That's odd, but but it's good. Um, but he said, but in his practice, he says one of the things that he finds prevalent over his man, he's my age, so he's been practicing for about 30, 40 years now. He says this addiction problem. And of course, we have addicted to drugs, addicted to money, addicted to prestige. Um, and he's right. It becomes it becomes your purpose, saying I have to have more and more and more. Now, I appreciated his insight um, from a professional, medical perspective, and I'm looking at it, from a marketing perspective and a societal, sociological perspective. And I'm saying, what's going on in our society when we have become so darn materialistic? And I know part of the problem is marketers. Marketers have a way of creating advertisements and creating images. And if you use this product, you are going to be better, happier, healthier, everything. Well, what Richer Than a Millionaire does, says, no, it's none of that. It all comes from here. And what is going on in your heart, and this is one of the basic principles of marketing. We talk about the cognitive issues and how you can rationally look at a product or a service. And then you can look at it from an affect or an affective procedure or and perspective, what's going on in your heart. And basically one of the important theories in marketing, if you can get your heart and your mind going in the same direction to embrace a product, you're probably going to buy that product. So it's not just this rational thing. It has to be part of your total being. Well, if part of your total being is going to be dictated by, I have a greater purpose, like raising a family and being charitable and practicing the golden rule, your whole outlook on life changes, and I think changes for the better. And the reason I can say it changes for the better is because of that scale that Professor Diener created called subjective well-being. That's in the book, and you can determine how well adjusted you are yourself. But I find it very unfortunate when I meet people who make that singular purpose of being successful and then I'll be happy. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's the process. Like, look, when Millionaire Next Door was being developed, or just a couple of academics doing some good research, and what we had was convergent validity. We had, again, not only our own research, but we also had IRS data and Census Bureau data, syndicated data. And when we put it all together, we found, wow, we have something here. And that's the same thing when I did this research with my colleague, Rich Van Ness, who's also an academic. But we were looking at this, what kind of message do we want to give our grandchildren? And, I have 6 grandchildren, blessed with that, 1 wife, blessed with that. And, 3 emancipated kids, 3 kids and all emancipated, everybody's in pretty good health. I'm happy, and I want everyone to be happy. And I think the key element of that happiness is fine, be successful in a material sense, but never forget there are those in need and who can benefit from your wealth that you have created.
So I have a very practical questions, and to be very transparent about this, I have often thought about giving a lot of what I have away. But my challenge is that I get about 20% return on my investment. And I feel that if I give it away now, it would be X dollars. But if I give it next year, it would be 1.2X. And so on and so forth. And I can effectively double it in 3 to 4 years and then give double the money. what advice would you have for someone like me?
Well, you, you got to know how many of those years you have left, right? So, I mean, first of all, you got to, first of all, I think that's wonderful, giving it away, in this, of course, Warren Buffett, talks about the, what is it called? Uh, Whatever that challenge is called, where he said, let's make a commitment to give it away. Um, uh, because well, it just makes sense to make that particular um, idea. But look, as my estate attorney tells me, he says, well, look, don't give so much away right now. There'll be a step up basis in your assets on the time of your death, and there won't be any the capital gains taxation. So it does make sense to, well, give some of it away now, but you can make a big splash when you're no longer here.
Yeah, that's the idea. When I'm no longer here, and when I'm no longer here to see it, because I can't take it with me, and the kids have enough, and I think leaving a lot of money to the kids can also spoil them. And I have this thing where I've seen generations, at least from my father's side, where one generation is wealthy, and then the next generation spends all the money, and then the following generation, or maybe a couple of generations down, they have to rebuild. So I've seen that kind of happen as look at my ancestors from my father's side.
Yeah. No, and one of the key tables, I forget which one it is, but in Millionaire Next Door, we look at the spending habits of those who have inherited their money versus those who have earned the money. And when you look at, clothing, jewelry, cars, housing, everything that you can consume. And what do we find on just some basic t-test analysis? We find that those who have earned the money tend to be more frugal, because they said, look, why am I buying these material things? But if you inherit it, it's easy come, easy go, right? And that's, of course, when it starts spiraling down. You want to have well-adjusted children who become good managers of money. That's for sure. And I'd like to think, well, I think my kids are doing okay. Yeah, they are. And again, the basic idea, again, it's a Warren Buffett famous quote: give your kids enough so they can do anything, but not so much they can do nothing. So you don't want to deprive them too much, but come on.
Yeah, the other challenge is money management, that I think really just basic financial management needs to be taught to a lot of people who are not millionaires. We had a situation where somebody had to leave their home for 3 days because of some infestation, pest infestation, and we gave them $300, and $300 at that time was a significant amount of money to Airbnb and find a place, so that they can stay for 3 days. And they decided to spend all that $300 in living in a fancy Marriott for 1 day because they had never experienced it, and came back after the first night and said, well, we spent all our money. And it was, it was heartbreaking in some ways, that how, when you get money just for free, that you do not have that same value associated with it.
Yeah, now that is a good observation. That's, again, easy come, easy go. But, from an entrepreneurial perspective, in building wealth, I've met a number of physicians, and one in particular, an orthopedic surgeon, who confided to me saying, Bill, I don't like to do surgery. I said, oh, great. Here we have, a surgeon who doesn't like surgery. He says, but what I do like to do, I like to create devices that can be used in the operating room. And so he likes getting those royalties for his inventions because he knows so much about what has to be done. And so he's just refocused his life, saying surgery is, well, it was a good education, but what's even better now is I can get royalties based on my knowledge and help others in a very significant way. So when I look at some of these cases, and the same thing with another physician I interviewed, he goes, he was getting so darn sick and tired of doing elective surgeries and getting sued when they don't uh, go the way they should have gone. He said, I'm going to become an emergency room physician. So look, I could tell the person, I'm doing what I can do to save you. And you should be happy that I've done what I've done. And he finds life so much easier, better, satisfying by not getting sued and having to worry about this. I mean, certainly he's a prudent guy. I'm not questioning his credentials, but he says, sometimes on elective surgeries, things don't go the way you would hope they would go, and you end up with a lawsuit. So I look at the way some very successful people have refocused their efforts just to avoid some of the risk that's inherent in what they've been doing.
What would be your advice for somebody who is just graduated from college or just started their career in their 20s? Somebody that has a relatively good education and finds a job. What should they do?
Yeah, again, another inspirational piece of advice that I got from Earl Nightingale in the 1950s. He wrote an essay called The Strangest Secret. And in this strangest secret, it's a very short essay that you can Google, but he uses a metaphor within this particular speech. It is a speech, really, but he turned it into an essay for publication about what advice do you give to somebody just starting off in their career? I mean, very often, look, I've personally had over 10,000 students in my teaching career. In my early years, I would have the lecture centers with 400 to 700 students. And in my later years, I would have classes of 20 and 30, which was a little more enjoyable, a lot more enjoyable, quite frankly. But the point is, I would tell my students in one of the last lectures in whatever class I was teaching in marketing about the strangest secret about career preparation. And it's advice that I think that holds true even today. And what the strangest secret is, he uses the metaphor of the wood-burning stove. He says, how odd is it to tell a wood-burning stove, give me heat, then I will give you wood? He goes, well, isn't it odd when you tell on a job search, I want to make a lot of money? Well, the question is, what kind of effort are you going to put in to get that heat, to get that money, right? So it all comes down to the personal motivation. In fact, one of the references, it's one of the footnotes in Richer Than a Millionaire. This very idea is brought up. A couple of economists looked at the success of students is more a function of their personal efforts than it is the credential that they got, right? So personal effort is everything. And it's nice to have an aura of, well, Duke, Harvard, whatever the university might be. But if you don't have that personal spark, you're just going to be plodding along, and your expectation of making a lot of money may not be realized. Personal effort is everything. And so it all comes, what's between your earphones, right? What are you going to do to make this work?
I do like that personal effort. And unfortunately, though, we are at the hour, the half hour in this particular case, so we have to get going. But we want to thank our special guest, Dr. Bill Danko, who's the co-author of the Millionaire Next Door, which, like I said, it kind of changed my whole view of everything when I read your first book in 1984. Dr. Danko, I'd worked with millionaires. I couldn't believe how frugal they were, or we would say tight they were. And your whole book just woke me up. I was going like, wow, This is amazing. The insights that you had were just completely amazing. And frankly, even this program you just did woke me up. Richer than a millionaire. I'm going like the insights that you have are just completely amazing.
Definitely.
And hopefully we'll wake up the people on VC Masters and the people, our private equity groups and our people around the United States and around the world. And we'll see you next week on VC Masters with Dr. Salman Azhar. In the meantime, stay richer than a millionaire. Bye-bye.
I go anywhere with you, 'cause you fill my mind, or you fill my mind. We could build a dream, start up something new, and the world is on your shoulders, and you feel